Janet, Try It Like It Created, and I just got a box in from Etchall, Etching Cream, and I just wanted to share with you what came in my box and how everything is packaged. So the first thing to show you is this detailed pick tool, and there is the UPC number if you're interested, and this is what the tool looks like. And then there is a pick knife, and there is the blade, and those both come in their own little tubes with their lids that correspond. And then this is your Etchall squeegee. It's used to pick up your Etchall cream and apply it to your surfaces, and that's called the squeegee. And then this is how your etching cream comes packed. Now mine came double bagged. This is a 16-ounce or 1 pint of reusable glass and mirror etching. Now that's important to note that it's reusable, so that once you use it, you can put it back into the jar and continue to use it. I also want to point out to you the ACMI code on the side for safety. Then I received a couple of sheets of transfer film and a couple of sheets of yellow vinyl. After cutting the vinyl on my Cricut Maker, I am going to now use my weeding tool from Etchall and weed out all of the letters. So what I want to do is keep the background and remove the letters, because the letters are what's going to etch. And if you would like a copy of this file, you can pick it up on my site. Try It Like It Created. So to etch our glass, what we want to do is first clean off the surface that we're going to work on, and we do that with rubbing alcohol. And so I'm just going to give a little squirt here, and then I'm going to use a cloth to clean off the surface. And rubbing alcohol dries relatively quickly, so you just need to go until you hear kind of squeakiness, and that removes any fingerprints, any dirt, anything sticky off the surface. And now I want to point out to you that my glass has a seam where it's manufactured, and so I'm going to avoid that when I go to etch it. All right, so I'm just going to stand that up, and you'll notice that I put a plastic bag down on my work surface. My work surface is a glass mat, and since I'm using etching cream that works on glass, it would etch my surface. So I have put a plastic bag down to work on. Now let's take a look at our vinyl piece that we're going to place on our glass to etch. I have weeded it out, and I have covered it with my transfer tape. And now before I go any further, what I like to do is to kind of bend the design, and I just kind of eyeball it, but what I'm looking at is the edge here and the edge right here, and I line those up and kind of fold the center line of the vinyl, and that helps me see how it's got a center line now. That helps me know where to line things up. Okay, and now for applying it, this is a straight line here that lines up with my wording. However, you can tell here is a cut with a scissor that does not line up. So when you go to apply your vinyl, you want to be careful about what you're using as your guidelines. You can also, if you'd like, you can draw right onto your glass with a black Sharpie marker, a permanent marker, and that can help you know how to line things up as well. So now I am working on making sure that everything is stuck to the transfer film, and I'm seeing here that my little pieces in the center of the letters are fighting me a little bit. So I want to be careful of little pieces like that, that they stay put on the transfer film and not on the backing that I am peeling away. All right, so I am just rubbing with my finger. You could use a brayer, any kind of tool to rub that down, just to make sure it sticks where it is needed. So if you pay attention to what letters you have, then you'll know what pieces may lift on you and what you need to work on to get it to stick down. But if you see it come up with your film like that, then you just go back down and give it a good push, and more than likely you're going to get it to stick in place. And before I remove it fully, I just double check to make sure that all the pieces have transferred, and they have. All right, so now I am ready to lay this onto my glass piece. Now there's my side that has the seam, and here's my center. I can actually even kind of use the straw as something to line up with. Now I'm going to gently lay this down. All right, and then I'm going to take a look to see if I like it before I rub it down permanently, and I do. So now I can rub that down. Now you can see I have excess vinyl here. I can cover more if I'm worried about having any issue with it, with the cream going beyond my film. But usually this is enough for me. Some people like to wrap their entire thing. And now it's time to take the transfer film off the front so that we can etch. And once again, you've got to pay attention to those little teeny pieces because they can come up with the transfer film. So you just want to be careful and slow as you work. And you can see here that I have it flipped back upon itself, and that helps with those little pieces staying down. So I'm just going to go at it slow and a little bit at a time, just double checking. All right. Now, before I go any further, I'm going to set that transfer to the side. The next thing I want to do is I need to rub all of this down really well. And I just use the back of my fingernails. You can use a tool to do this, but you basically want to go around all the letters and get rid of any air bubbles that you see. Now, air bubbles out here on the side are perfectly fine because we're not etching that area. But anything that has contact with an open area that looks like it's lifting or it has a little air bubble, we want to work that down smooth. All right, you want to try to avoid using your finger because your finger has grease on it. And if we were to clean this again with rubbing alcohol, it would lift up the vinyl. So I just tend to use the back of my fingernail and just make sure all those pieces are nice and stuck down. And the ones you really need to be aware of are those extra little bitty pieces. All right, so just turning it in the light, I can see if anything is lifting, if I've got anything that might hinder a good etching. So I'm just going to take my time to double check. And I think we're good to go. So I'm going to apply my cream, let it sit for 15 minutes, and then remove it and put it back in the jar. Now this jar I've been using for a while, and you'll note that as you use your etching cream, it does change color over time. Now mine has turned to kind of a tan color, if you will. It's kind of a yucky tan color. And it starts out as a light cream. All right, I'm trying to get the paper off of it without touching it. All right, so there, you can see my cream is kind of coffee-like, I would say. All right, so now you can use your spatula tool to get in there and pick up the etching cream, and you just want to apply it onto the surface. And you could be generous with this because, like I said, you're going to reuse it. All right, now as you put it on, it's like, kind of think of it like icing, and that we don't want to rub our vinyl too harshly to make it move. So I'm just spreading it on like I would icing. And I am not going to start my timer for the 15 minutes until I have the whole thing covered. And I like to go in and check it about halfway through, so about 7.5 minutes. I go through and just kind of move things around as needed. All right, and you can see because mine has been exposed to air, it is getting thicker, but it is more of a paste-like feeling to it. If you're worried, you could work with rubber gloves on. There is no odor necessarily to this, so I'm not worried about any fumes with it. But I am also not touching it with my skin, making sure not to touch it. So I'm not working with gloves. However, if you feel the need to use some gloves, go right ahead. You just don't want to touch your skin with the cream if you don't have to. And if you're worried about it, you can definitely read the safety features of it on the Arts Materials website for its rating. All right, so that looks to be a pretty good application. And then I just need to let it sit for 15 minutes, and then we'll be back to remove it. So our 15 minutes have passed, and now it's time to just remove the cream and put it back into the jar. After this step, you would then take it to the sink and wash it with soap and water. Now, I don't have a sink in my craft room, so I tend to use a baby wipe, and then I dispose of it. All right, so that's the cream, and put the lid back on. Now, the plastic bag that I'm working on will also be disposed of. So I can lay items down on it. And I'm looking to see, where did my baby wipe container go? Oh, here it is. All right. All right, so with a wet baby wipe, I'm going to remove the rest of the etching cream without touching it and without getting it on any other part of the glass. And you can see as I do that, that some of the stencil or some of the vinyl starts to lift off. And I'm okay with that because that is what our next step is going to be, is to remove that. So you set that aside there, all right? And then the next step is to remove our vinyl. And I'm going to give this a good clean with rubbing alcohol after I get the vinyl off. there we can start to see that our etching worked. So I put some white paper inside so hopefully you can see the etching a little bit better. But now as I remove it, there you can see how the etching looks on the glass. And if you'd like, you can color this with like a rub and buff or a wax, even a glass paint. You would rub it on and wipe it off and it will stick where the glass is etched. Now this is permanent. If you put this in the dishwasher, it's not coming off. This has permanently etched the surface of the glass. I'm going to go ahead and apply this glass paint, and I'm going to put it on similar to a rub and buff. Now it says to shake it well first, so I'm doing that. And I'm not sure if I hear a bead in there or not. It seems like there might be something. All right, but I'm just going to go ahead and open it up like this. And then with a tissue, I'm going to rub it into the etching and then wipe it off. And if you wanted to, you could actually go in and paint it in place with a brush. And I'm going to lightly wipe it off the glass. So this is going to give it a very soft look of color. Now we don't want to leave any where we don't want the color because it is glass paint and it will become permanent in about 4 days. So you can see I'm putting it on and wiping it off. And I'm going to do it one more time. So there we are. I think it has improved it some. It has given it a bit of color. I could go one more time if I wanted it to be a more intense color, but I think that is good enough for our use.